Hello everyone and welcome to Outriders New Horizon. In today's video we're going to explore a trickster build focusing on the river tree for maximum survivability and a lot of damage using our skills and mods. As much as I wanted to make a hybrid build using both firepower and anomaly damage or skill damage, it doesn't work because it needs twisted rounds. However, I don't want to make a bad copy of the Assassin, let's say, build because we're using the Trespasser set, and for that reason I'm focusing more on skill damage and mod damage. So without any further delay, let's have a closer look at the build. For our skills, we're using Time Rift, the best deception skill you can use, debuff enemies with weakness, vulnerability, crowd control, increase DPS, the best deception skill period. Borrow time instead of Hunt the Prey, because thanks to Adhere 3 mod, it will make us inflict AoE damage as long as we spam Borrow time. That's why I prefer this instead of Hunt the Prey. And this is the flex slot. If you go solo, Venator's Knife is the best choice. It increases our damage by a lot, although it doesn't work very well with Time Rift and a little bit of Pain. It works excellent with Borrowed Time and the aggressive teleportation, or with our secondary weapon mods, and it's very good against bosses. That being said, if in case you go with a group, you can go with Slow Trap. It will increase our damage by 6% thanks to the Trespasser set for each enemy afflicted. It will make the bullet slow or the enemy slow, and also thanks to the Trespasser set, everyone inside cannot die for 10 seconds. And as you can see, thanks to our skill cooldowns, we have 9.2 seconds cooldown. So we can pretty much use it quite frequently. This can be a very good lifesaver for some specific sections that some of your teammates may have trouble surviving. So you can just pop Slow Trap, slow the enemies, and in case your friends go down, they won't die as long as they remain inside the Slow Trap. So let's have a closer look at the armor and mods we're using. You will see everything in the background to take a screenshot, but let's have a closer look at each individual item, starting with head. Trespasser set gives us 6% damage increase per enemy affected by deception skill. That's why we need 2 deception skills to increase every damage by 6%. Our mods, our skills and everything. That's why we're using the Trespasser set. Now, for the head, we kept the long range, it's a must. I have added Captain Hunter. We lose a little bit of the mods, but thankfully we have the cooldown reduction. For the chest piece, we're using an epic item, Anomaly Power, cooldown reduction. This is actually a flex slot. Skill life leech, I don't like it as much, but I was a little unlucky. I didn't find status power with the mods and the rest of the things I needed, because I do prefer status power. It gives more duration for Geiger's wave and the weakness that Time Rift inflicts, and it's actually quite well. That's what I recommend. If you don't find it, don't worry, you can use skill life leads, healing received, something like that, without losing so much benefit. And I'm also using short-term Loan to reduce the cooldown of borrow time by an additional 22%. For the gloves, I'm using the Trespasser Talons with max health, cooldown reduction, close range damage, relief pain transfer, one of the best mods for AoE damage to share the damage for all the enemies. Double time, I usually don't like it with my previous build, because the enemies were dead by the time the time rift ended. However, using this build, you don't have as much burst damage, because we don't have as much anomaly damage to take effect from our other mods, or we don't have the temporal blade for some burst damage. That's why we need the double time to deal as much extra burst against elites and high health enemies, and it's pretty good. And finally, for the boots, we're using an epic piece with anomaly power, cooldown reduction and status power, trample the weak, 10% more damage against enemies afflicted with weakness thanks to our time rift, and this is the flex slot. I have tried many mods, however, power simulation, I think for me it deals a little the more damage because I don't need any survivability. We don't have any survivability mods, I don't need them. I have never died using this build at all. It's ridiculous. Some of the other mods I tried was Anomaly Cut. It didn't offer so much DPS increase as I hoped. Sharpening also didn't offer so much DPS increase. Eager's Edge, 2 more bounces also didn't take as much benefit. No Escape, Misery. I have also tried Time Crack, and I have seen no such thing as a DPS increase once again, although I do recommend if you go with a group, this can help the group to even lower the resistance and armor of the enemies a little bit, that and all your friends can take a little more benefit. And I think there is a tier 3 mode that rebounces the Venator's knife 2 times. This could be one of the best, however I was unlucky with my drops and I wasn't able to find it, but it's something you can try yourself in case you see some DPS increase. Let's move on to the weapons. Now, the best weapon probably is the Funeral Pyre with Shadow Command, Claymore Torrent, because of how it works. All the pellets, if they hit multiple enemies, it will proc multiple times, Claymore Torrent and Shadow Command. However, I had a personal problem, that's why I'm not using the Funeral Pyre and I'm using the Damascus Offering with the same mods. I was running out of bullets quite often because you need to spam your mods. These are the primary source of your DPS apart from your skills, and I had to reload quite often and sometimes I got knocked back, I didn't have the cooldowns, it was a little awkward. That's why I personally prefer the Damascus Offering. However, the Funeral Pyre can work a little better, especially if you go with a group and they cover you. The Damascus Offering can also work very well in case you don't want to invest in Shadow Command and that Fortress. However, I didn't like the Fortress, although the times were similar, because you need to spam your weapon in between to proc Fortress to deal a little more damage with your skills and Claymore Torrent, and although the timers were similar, the rotation was a little more awkward because our skills have very awesome cooldowns. 5 seconds almost time rift and less than 5 seconds, 4 seconds borrow time and 4.4 seconds of Venator's life. And even if you use the slow trap, it will have 9.2 seconds. That's why the rotation will be a little awkward with a Fortress and I don't prefer it. Secondary weapon, Anemo Shotgun on the Guillotine as always, for maximum damage, for money wins and redemption splash. For the sidearm, I mostly not use it because I spam my 2 weapons and my skills because we have low cooldowns. I have Kinetic Storm just in case. However, if you have the Funeral Pyre, I do recommend to have something with either Storm Whip, Death Chains, and have Claymore Torrent, so you have a long range weapon because two of our skills have long range, the Venator's Knife and the Time Rift, and you can just combine it with the sidearm to pick up the enemies that are afar, because the Funeral Pyre doesn't have such good range and can run out of ammo very fast. Moving on to the class tree, I have made many tests with many variations. We're focusing on the Harbinger, because this will maximize our survivability without the need to kill enemies. The last perk gives us a 50% shield while we use a deception skill. We have 2 deception skills, so we can have max shield with just spawning of our skills, and we have 33 almost 1000 health, so we're very hard to die. Apart from that, we have the dual shield, 6% more mitigation on top of the 5%, so 11% more mitigation while we have shield. That's why we survive quite easy without any defense mods. I've also invested in resistance because we don't have anything else. I didn't take the shield's timeline because I need the status power, or I like it, I get entropy to increase the duration of weakness and thus deal 10% more damage to enemies thanks to Trample the Weak. Once again, increase the resistance, increase the armor, and this is the mandatory perks. I have also went here to maximize the cooldowns of aura skills with Singularity and Equilibrium, and I have gone below to take the counter shield, 50% increase anomaly power when using the deception skill. This is actually good for a little bit of pain because it scales with anomaly power. That's why I have just dipped, let's say, here. That being said, I have tried to not take these 4 nodes and go to take the combat skills timeline, but I didn't notice such a good increase in overall DPS. I do prefer to have better cooldowns instead of this slight DPS increase. I had no problem surviving using this build and these perks. However, in case you find trouble surviving, you can sacrifice these 3 perks to get oddity resistance, 20% less damage against elites, and long odds, 15% increased armor for each enemy in close range, and there is one flex slot. You can get, probably concentration is the best option, 10% more anomaly power to have just a little bit increase for everything else, but I don't think you will need it. This is all you need. As you can see, the armor increase is just ridiculous. I'm just using not the second deception, using the borrow time that gives me 15,000 shield, and I have my shield up all the time, and you kill enemies to have your shield. And I have done some expeditions without taking damage, and only the shield managed to heal me because the enemies didn't do any damage to us. Here the rotation is actually quite simple. We're taking advantage of our skills, and you can open with Time Rift, proc your mods for maximum DPS, and Venator's Knife and a little bit of Pain doesn't go well together. However, Venator's Knife and Borrowed Time goes a little bit because of the aggressive teleportation. You can deal double damage to elites or everything else that affected with Venator's Knife, or you can use that skill with the Anemoy Shotgun or the Guillotine proc to deal enormous amount of burst damage. And don't forget, each enemy affected by our deception skills increase our damage by 6%. That's why our mods deal a lot of damage, and that's why we can just make this work. I have honestly underestimated borrowed time a lot. Thanks to aggressive teleportation, the damage is quite awesome. You can either double click the skill to inflict the AoE damage on spot, or you can do some awesome things. Proc the borrow time, go to where you want to proc it, because the second time you activate the skill and you return to your spot, you will proc the damage where you were, not where you will return. So if you know the spawn point, you can just keep borrow time, go where you want to proc the borrow time, the mods and everything, return to the spot that some mobs will just respawn, and you will have your cooldowns back to inflict some more damage. So it's actually quite good. And finally, let's move on to the advantages and disadvantages while using the build. You have very good survivability, the best. You don't need to kill the enemies to proc the shield, and you can pretty much take 0 damage and the shield will take all your healing. That's why you don't need the skill life leads. That being said, single target DPS is not as bad, especially if you just combo the Time Rift with the boss and some elites, share the damage, proc the mods correctly. Venator's Knife and aggressive teleportation, or Venator's Knife and secondary weapon mods deal a lot of damage to take a very huge chunk of the elites and bosses. That being said, the disadvantage is that compared to the assassin, let's say, build, you don't have the best single target DPS against bosses. That's the only disadvantage. However, in my opinion, overall, it's a very good build. It's very fast. It's honestly can be faster than the anomaly power when you use the temporal blade, because of the circumstances and how the skills are working. Overall, this is a very good build, quite fast, nice AoE, decent single target DPS, and the best survivability so far. One of my favorite Trickster builds. It works, although we have 2 pieces of bonus firepower, and we take some benefit more from anomaly power, and although most of our damage will come from our mods, so you don't have to worry so much. And you also have the option to run the bubble, one of my favorite skills, the slow trap, and you take the best benefit while running the slow trap, because you can just in a group pop the slow trap when you know that some enemies may kill your teammates, and everyone is unkillable for 10 seconds inside there. So it's a very nice DPS increase and crowd control and survivability skill. And that was it for today's video. I really hope this will help you build your own variation of the River Trickster to solo challenge tier 15 expeditions easy and fast. So feel free to like if you liked, and you can subscribe to stay tuned for more upcoming videos for Outriders and other video games. And as always, I wish you all a wonderful day.